Do you even like black women? I'm so sick and tired of you talking about us. You talking about your mama. We not all like that. Almost a year ago, I was invited to come out and speak on the Elephant in the Room podcast to give my thoughts on black women and the black community. Well, now the time has come to find out, does Black Guru even like black women? Take a look.
So did you date a lot of women of color?
Oh yeah, pretty much almost exclusively. I mean, here and there were some, different races, but almost mainly women of color. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you say that they just don't gel with you. Like, what characteristics of women of color do you not, resonate with?
Yeah. So I mean, what's interesting, like as far as attractiveness, women of color have always been attracted to me because of, I think, kind of certain characteristics that I have. I've always had. I mean, I've always been called an asshole, or you're a jerk, or you're a little bit of a arrogant, you're pretty boy, you think you're too good. I mean, I've been told that my whole life. Right. So I mean, this stuff that they say to me now on the internet is nothing. I mean, I've been said this stuff my whole life, so it doesn't faze me. But I would say, looking back at that time, they may have been attracted to something within me that was probably like that. Mm-hmm. Maybe they even though they say, oh, you think you're too good because I didn't want them, but they like the arrogant guy. Yeah. They like it, and it's funny is, to this day, I'll have women, they've even made videos about it. They say, I was talking to Black Guru, and it's just something about his arrogance and the way he conducts himself that's attractive. I don't know why we're like this, So it's an interesting dynamic that the women actually are attracted to stuff like that, even though they just don't like the fact that I won't accept them in their state.
Bro, I've dealt with the same thing, bro. Like, I've been called bougie, I've been called closed off. Like, I don't have like an opening, welcoming presence to my demeanor, especially in public. So unless you honestly know me or I'm around some familiarity, but I honestly think like that most black women, black men in general, I mean also, but majority black women have daddy issues. And I feel like when they meet men similar to us, I feel like they see versions of their daddy that they never had, and they're attracted to that. Like the firmness, the zero tolerance, the tell you exactly who you are, not looking at you because you're beautiful. We are looking at you from your character. Your daddy don't care if you gorgeous. He gonna tell you go sit down if you need to go sit down. And I feel like those type of characteristics, resonate to black women subconsciously. And that's what they're attracted to. Jana, what you think about that?
You know what? I totally agree with that. I've talked to thousands of women over the course of the last few years, and those women have, told me that. They said, at times they would just be blunt with it and say, I need a man that's going to be like you to tell me to shut up.
For sure.
Sometimes tell me to do this, or, I don't want to make all the decisions. And as much as a lot of them don't like it, it's what they need, but they just fight against it. And that's the problem that I have, that has always made it difficult for me to be in a relationship with one very long term, because they know they need what they need, they just fight against it. Yeah. So it's like, now where are we getting? Where are we going? If I get us up here and then you're fighting with me, now we're back down here, and then we're always trying to fight to just get here. We're never getting way up here.
Yeah. And I think that, the viewpoint that black women have, even when they find like a masculine alpha male like us, I feel like they just still, like, the men that we are, like, is like their appreciation is blurred because of social media and the internet. Like, the internet will basically give them a confidence to continue modernism, even though they with a person that would give them the peace that traditional values give. Any woman that's modern, man, they don't not have peace. A lot of them, they say they have peace, and they have a false peace when it comes to isolationism. But they honestly, when they get to a certain age, even Taraji said that you can have the biggest mansion, but it's pointless if no one is sharing it with you. Yeah. And this modern day woman is, like I said earlier, it's the guinea pigs, because people don't understand like how it is until you get to a woman's age like Taraji, and you get to a point where the only thing you want is comfort of a spouse or a loved one there to actually share life with. But yeah, man, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you make some great points. I haven't heard that particular take from Taraji, but I can hear her saying something like that.
Nah, she definitely said we're gonna put it in the clip on the interview.
Okay.
But she definitely said it, and when she said it, even Vivica Fox, she's at a point, and they like hovering at the same age, and that's like that gives me clarity on where it starts to drop off, where that arrogance, where that realism actually kicks in, and that epiphany sparks to like, okay, I do need a man, and it seems to be at that 55, almost 60 age, but it lasts for a long time. You have 40-year-old women, 30-year-old women, 20-year-old women, all in the same position and fighting for the same exact man, and then when they get their man, they don't even know what to do with it because the wisdom is not getting passed down. You know what I mean? Like back in the day, like that's why you see in different cultures, they don't have these traditional values with the internet because their tradition and their wisdom is getting passed down, and it's an expectancy of honor in their culture. Like if you in a Hispanic culture and you don't take care of your man, like you frowned upon by your loved one and peers. It's not like a situation where our culture, we're like, man, F that man. Like, take care of yourself. Like, he all right. Like we have these connotations attached to, how we treat our men and love our men. And that's why we get to a point of weariness and tiredness when it comes to the black woman. And I feel like, I don't know if you at that weary stage now or if you at the stage where, you just never coming back to it. Like, where are you at with the black woman?
I help whoever wants to be helped. I have a coaching program. I have one-on-ones that I do with women, and I've done a lot of them, but they're few and still few and far in between compared to the amount that need it. Right. And I mean, literally can give them the blueprint of how to dwell with a man, the things that they never received, especially if their father wasn't around. Or some of them, father was around and he just never conveyed these things to them. And it's very much so that they need these things. A lot of them, they have to. So you have to think about it like this. For the average one of our women, and I look at net wealth, right? As far back, I think it's 2021, 2022 statistics. The net wealth for the single black woman is about $1,600. Okay. Just a few years ago, we got that data.
Wow.
Net wealth for a single mother in the black community is zero. It's probably negative, right?
Right.
It's not even on the chart, so it shows up as zero. And when we're talking net wealth, that's nothing. $1,600 for a single black woman with no children. That's not good at all. That's terrible.
Right.
So I mean, when you're asking me where am I at with that, I mean what can you do with that with someone that has the mindset that they believe that in this aspect, I believe that I'm doing good, I believe that I'm making it, I believe that I'm thriving, and they'll say all that stuff when the data shows it's not true. And I'll even question some of them when I talk to them. I'll say, let's be honest, a lot of you are living paycheck to paycheck, and some of them will come on and say, yeah, you're actually right. Or I'm struggling, or I'm not even paycheck to paycheck, I'm having to borrow. We're seeing an epidemic where a lot of the women are living in their cars, and I believe, or homeless period, having to whoever they can fit in with to try to live with. And I just see that as, when you're talking Vivica Fox and Taraji and women like that, 55, 60 years old is too late.
It's way too late.
It's way too late for them to come down off their high horse and realize that maybe, like you said, I do need a man. Maybe I do need to work together. And even if they do realize, they don't know how, right? You got 60 years of living alone, and the sisterhood, all the women in your family and the women around you just telling you fine and you look good, and girl, let's just do you, or let's do us, or drop that one ninja, get another one,
Right.
I don't know if you heard that. It was like,
which
if
one?
you drop if this ninja don't act right, drop him, get another one. If he don't act right, you get another one. If he don't, and that's just kind of how they feel. They don't believe in working things out with a decent, honest man. And the point that I was going to actually make was, I don't think that majority of them desire to be in that type of committed relationship with a man that's structured, that knows where he's going in life, that's going to rule his family, right? I don't think they desire that, right? Because it's that structured life doesn't give them the freedom to have their fun. Doesn't give them the freedom to dress how they want to dress. Doesn't give them the freedom to speak however they want to speak, reckless or whatever. The crazy thing about it is they'll do it on the job. They'll do it when they're at school, right? Because they want that piece of paper, that degree, so they know that they can't come in the classroom talking crazy. They know they can't go on the job talking crazy. They gotta wear what the employer says wear. If this is your uniform, you gotta wear that. The employer says you gotta cover up your head, you got to cover up your head, whatever
sure.
it is.
For
but
sure.
they're not going to do that for the man.
Man, that's an eye opener, because it's 100% facts. And when you think about it, man, it's like it can go all the way down back to slavery when they used to demasculate the man in front of the black woman and made her, look at her husband with no masculine like characteristics because it was stripped from him, and then they get around, the master and give him the most admiration and the most, order and structure, and it just goes all the way back. But that's what it reminds me of. I don't know if that's like a correlation to where we at now, so to speak, but it just reminds me of that slave mentality that we had. And but why do you think that we got to this point where our women just doesn't put us in perspective of respect?
Yeah, I think you hit on it a little bit when you talked about, starting off with slavery and how we were perceived from the lack of power we had and the inability to do anything and to help our women, to help our family, help our children. And we were just kind of at the mercy of the slave masters, slave owners.
Right.
I think that was passed down because you see elements of disrespect, right? Starting from then, just think about it. If the woman's unhappy, even if the man was married during slavery and she's unhappy, think about if she wants to hit him where it hurts.
Right.
She starts to say something about that's why
Absolutely.
master's beating your behind.
Absolutely.
Or you're going to get yours or whatever. And then the children hear that, right? And our girls have heard that type of stuff on through the years.
Yeah.
And even though we've had times where the respect has been better, I think that was kind of probably the start of, if we were to pinpoint it, and it just never has been able to fully correct itself to say, no, this is absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah, man. And since we're here, I definitely want to talk about like a timeline, because it definitely was a timeline for us to get to this point. We actually got married under slavery more frequently than we're getting married now as free people. Before I talk about the time, I definitely want to say that I honestly feel like we have gotten to this point because they let us go physically, but they kept us enslaved mentally. I feel like the mental state and the perspectives that we share in the black community is a controlled environment, from the music that's ran by a certain race, media, the portrayal of black celebrities. I feel like all of that has a controlled environment attached to it. After doing civil rights, that's probably was the best time for the black community. We was obtaining wealth. We was a collective, and our black women stood beside us at its worst and best point of us in existence, in my opinion. Now, after Martin Luther King died, I honestly felt like prior to the 1960s, things was good, because my mom was born in 1960, and I love my mom to death. She raised outstanding kids, but she has that independent type of mindset. And I feel like prior to 1960, after Martin Luther King died, he died in 1960, I felt like they went to work on us mentally by having a controlled environment, like I said, to get us out of the home, and incentivize government assistance to replace the covering or the providing from the black community, because all of our money at the time prior to 1960 was trades. We were tradesmen, we was electricians, carpenters. That was, and all of the civil rights was funded by black families that owned trades. They took the trade schools out the school. They took trades out the school, and that's when we compensated that income with drugs. It was like articulate. Like we went from trades, we went to businessmen wearing suits, and then we went to the realm of drugs. They brought drugs in, and now we have to go to drugs, and they put the war on drugs. So then that's where the people actually start coming out, because my dad was a drug dealer. All my friends' dad was either drug dealers or crackheads. You see what I'm saying? And they was all 60 babies. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And it transitioned from there, because now you having those single mama drug dealer girlfriends raising us.
You brought up some great points. There's a lot to hit on. And I will say, to include into what you just said, the effect the media had.
Yes.
When we look at black film and entertainment, starting in probably the early 70s, just the portrayal of black folk on a major scale. You still had a mix of decent shows, right? Though black folks will talk about the Jeffersons and Good Times, things of this nature. But then you you had black film that showed a lot of prostitution,
Yes.
and pimping,
Yes.
and things
Come
of this
on
nature.
now.
And black folk really saw the glitz and glamour that brought, and they saw it in their communities, right? The hard working man that was struggling to make ends meet, is over here driving, a cheap little Chevy or whatever, or he may be just taking a bus every day to work.
Right.
Whereas the hustler, he's driving, the
Cadillac.
the nice Cadillac,
Yes,
right,
sir.
with the rims and the sound system and
Yes,
all that.
sir.
So now you got so many that want that, and then the women are seeing that too, and they're attracted to that flash and that pizzazz.
Yes.
And, I think you can even look at, they've done social experiments on us in particular, and media affects us more than other races.
Yeah.
It does when
Yeah.
it comes to anything that's why they say things like, oh, we start the trends of something, right? But it's really, from my perspective, it's not us really starting the trend. It's us being affected by media and then responding to it, right? We're faster at responding to whatever media is showing us.
Yeah.
So,
That's-
and then
that's very interesting.
that becomes the trend.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's damaged the black community very, very bad, very, very bad, with not being able to maintain structure, without, you look at, if you travel, and I've traveled a lot, you travel parts of Africa, the Middle East, and when you get outside of the West, just period, you see a lot of, in as far east as Southeast Asia, you see a lot of these communities that have held on to a lot of their culture.
Yeah.
Right? They've held on to a lot of their values, even the way they dress. You may see some modern stuff, but not really. I remember being in Thailand, and none of the people there are wearing Nike and Adidas and all that stuff, right? They're walking around in shorts and a tank top and flip flops for the most part.
Right.
But when you go to the shopping area, right, they're selling a lot of fake stuff.
Right.
That's Nike and Adidas, because who do they know is going to buy that? Tourists.
Right. Exactly.
They know that we're going to come from America, we're going to come from Europe, and we're going to want these brands that, but those people don't care about that stuff.
Right.
They're just trying to make a living and do what's right and maintain their morals and, and their family structure. And that's what we lost as a people. We got lost in the sauce of chasing the bag, chasing the brands, chasing all that stuff, and not focusing on our families and our morals.
Yeah, I agree. And it goes back, to expand on that, it goes back to, that timeline, because prior to, even before the 60s, we had Black Wall Street, and we was able to build Black Wall Street because, like I said, we was the tradesmen. Even when we were slaves, we made the weapons. We built those houses. We built those barns. We was the construction workers. We were the union workers. We were the electricians. We did everything. So all we had to do was take that specialized knowledge into a new land that we can call our own, and we're gonna build something. And we're gonna build something great as a collective, And we have lost our way, bro. We hate each other. We are jealous of each other. It's a crab in a bucket mentality.
Let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
If you go to any major black area in any, one of the major cities where black people are, what do you see as far as businesses go?
Liquor stores. You see liquor stores. You see corner stores. You see
hair shops,
beauty supply stores. You see McDonald's. You see.
But what do you think we're actually owning out of all that? What do we own?
Oh, the black dollar do not stay in the black community for less than an hour.
So maybe the barbershop and the hair, and maybe some food restaurants, soul food type of places, right? For the most part.
But those are relatively new, even. We just start, branching off. Entrepreneurship just became a thing. But prior to when we was growing up, or 10, 15 years ago, it wasn't a lot of soul food restaurants. You probably have one that been there since, civil rights days or something like that. But all these new pop-ups, that's a new thing. Yeah. That's why a lot of the cultures go to our neighborhoods. They go to our neighborhood because there's money there. And I was talking to a colleague of mine, and he was telling me that some banks don't even give you loans unless you go to those neighborhoods. Like the foreigners that come here, they come and try to get loans to build businesses, and a lot of the times they won't even be able to get those loans unless they open up shop in a impoverished area.
Yeah. So what's interesting is when we were talking about my hometown where I grew up, Bakersfield. One of my good friends told me I haven't been back to the city in years, probably over a decade.
That's how I feel about Chicago.
And he told me that he went in and he saw a lot of the old communities that were used to heavily be black. He said they're all Hispanic now.
Wow.
All of them.
Wow.
And I found that very interesting because, I mean, you look at, you take the Hispanic community, for instance, and the way that they, and very similar with other cultures, the way that they spread their money around, the way that they will uplift one person in the family so that they can get their business started. And everybody's going to help Uncle so-and-so get his business started with, a tire shop or a restaurant or, I mean, and they have so many different types of businesses, but these are the things that they're good at. A lot of black folks, like you said, used to be good at these things, and were never able to convert these things into businesses that lasted, right? The black-owned businesses that we think of today are really, to me, just related to hair and some soul food. That's why I asked you that, because I can't think of, and I've been to some major black cities, I can't think of any areas where you can go to and say, oh yeah, this is the black part of town and we dominate in having this business and this business and this business and this business. It's not like that, right? And then you look at a lot of these streets that they've named Martin Luther King Boulevard,
the worst neighborhoods,
and the absolute worst neighborhoods, poverty.
I think that's like a laughing joke, like that the higher ups laugh about. They only put, you know what I mean?
Find the worst street in the black community,
but we're naming after Dr. Martin Luther King. I feel like it's like a running joke, seriously, because I don't believe in a lot of coincidences. It's not coincidental that every street that have Martin Luther King Boulevard is in the neck of the wood. Like, there's no street named Martin LutherKing Boulevard in the suburbs.
Right.
I can guarantee you that.
Facts.
I can guarantee
I agree.
That. So, I feel like it's a running joke. I feel like it's a running joke, bro.
The people that live there are not going to allow it. They wouldn't allow it to be passed. It's too political.
Exactly.
So,
All right, so I want to talk about two things before we go. I want to talk about the BW, which is like essentially part of your brand, and that stands for Black Women. It's an acronym. And I want to talk about Kevin Samuel comparison. Now, when it comes to the BW in particular, we talked about it a little bit in the beginning. Where do you stand with them? Do you think that you will ever marry another one or be in a relationship with one, or do you think that they can never come back to the traditional values? Like what is your take on BWs in detail right now?
So a lot of brothers have come to me for advice, and they're like, Guru, I'm really attracted to black women. I really am. I don't want to give up on them. I know a lot of them are hurt and broken and, are not going to make good wives, but I'm not attracted to anybody else. And I totally understand that. And I've said many times before, I think physically the most attractive women to me probably still are women of color, right?
Right.
With the ones that take care of themselves, the ones that are in shape, the ones that don't look ratchet, things of this nature. But my philosophy is the same thing I tell the brothers. I say, listen, why would you try to find a needle in a haystack instead of just going to a place where they sell a whole bunch of needles? Right. So I tell them that, and I get them to think like what you're looking for. I say, I like to use this analogy too. I ask them, I say, when you walk out of your house and you just go to like your average part of wherever neighborhood you live in, your grocery stores, just the normal things that any person would do, would you be able to regularly spot out and pick out 5 to 10 women of color that you would say, she's marriage material? Oh, there's another one, she's marriage material. Ooh, I like her, she's marriage material too. And I haven't had one black man be able yet to say, yes, I'll be able to do that. I said 5 to 10. With as many women as they come across, I said, could you do that with 5 to 10? No, the answer is no. I said, you're looking for a needle in the haystack. If you come across it, then I say yes. Then definitely, I mean, if that's what you like, go for that. But I don't recommend them because our women have way too much work to do and they don't want to do it. And they're very stubborn. They like to argue. They like to go against anything a man says for the most part. And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. They just don't want to go with the flow of what's going to be best for the family and for the man, because they always got to feel like, well, what about me? What about me? And you can't take that type of mentality into a relationship. Because they always feel like they're going to lose out on something, right? And it has to be, this is I'm helping build my family. You should be wanting to cook and clean up your own house because you want your house and your family to have a nice house and good food, healthy food to eat. It shouldn't be what about me type of thing, right? Or why can't you clean? Why can't you? You should have this desire, just like the man should have the desire. I should want to work hard if I love my woman, my children.
For sure. sure.
But you'll want to get out there and work hard. But if you think about it, if you don't really love your woman and children, you're not going to want to get out and work hard and do nothing. It's the same thing. And they don't think about it that way as women. I say, well, it shows me that you don't really love your family, your man and your children, because you're not willing to do those things. You don't want to keep a very clean house for them. You don't want to cook nutritious meals for them. You don't want to do it. So when you're dealing with any woman that's like that, it's not just women of color, but any woman that you come across that has this type of hostility and disdain for family and relationships and men, and they're very hurt and triggered and think that all you are good for is a wallet, or a debit card or something, a credit card, then I tell the men all the time, you got to avoid these type of women. So I avoid any type of women that are like that, and unfortunately there's a lot of women of color that are like that.
All right, so what do you say to the woman of color that just heard all of that and they say, well, yeah, he is right, but I also want to make myself available to change? Like, what is something that you feel like they can do to repair themselves and put them in a position to be a more likable, mirrored material type of woman?
Great question. So I tell the women a lot of times when they ask me, what can we do? And I say this, I want you guys to think, let's flip it first so you got to understand what I'm saying. If you wanted a boy to become more manly, more masculine, learn responsibility, learn how he should take care of his family, what would you do? And they always say, well, I don't know. I say you would put him around masculine, hardworking, responsible men so he can learn from them. So I said the only way for you guys is to be around feminine, soft, sweet, family-oriented women. And unfortunately, for most of you, what you're going to have to do is travel to see that. You're going to have to go into the depths of Africa, Southeast Asia, different parts of the world where these women still value family and culture and taking care of the house and not talking back and not talking crazy to their men. Once you see that and you're around it so much, then it starts to become a part of you. But, our women, they don't travel for that. Like, you got to think about it. The average woman that's traveling in the community is traveling to go to party. To go to do, to let loose and do whatever they want to do with their homegirls. They're not traveling for culture. That's a huge difference. You have other communities. You look at Asian people, for instance, right? You'll see them coming from all parts of Asia, China especially. They'll travel to places like San Francisco, New York, because they want to experience the culture. They're not traveling there so that they can let loose and party and go crazy. Go wild, and drink as much liquor as they can drink for the weekend. They want to, experience the culture.
I agree.
And they have to have that type of mindset too. They have to change their mind. Like, I want to travel to the depths of, whatever country in Africa, whatever country in Asia, so I can experience where these women that the men say they're going for, these soft feminine women. One of the biggest countries for that is the Philippines. You look at how many European men, how many brothers that were in the military got wrapped up with Filipino women, right? They have some of the more highly respectable, traditional, cultural women in the world. And you got men from all parts of Europe that travel down there to be with those women. And I've seen it myself, even being in Thailand. And I was shocked that you hear these narratives online about passport bros and stuff like this. But for the most part, I would say at least 80% of the men I saw down there were older Caucasian men. Messing with the locals there.
It's so crazy that American men has pivoted and adapted to still finding traditional values to the point that they will travel thousands of miles just to actually obtain traditional values. And also, I want to give a shout out to the black women. Don't say I never did anything. He gave you guys a gem when it came to actually what to do in a situation if you really want change. If you really want change, you have to ingratiate yourself with people that have the change that you are wanting. And that was a gem. Don't say I never did nothing for y'all. So going back to that, but I think that the Passport Bros is an interesting dialogue as well, because it just shows it's a big social experiment. It shows how much of traditional values men honor to even go get different women in different cultures just to still obtain that for their marriage views. So yeah, man. And I honestly think that Kevin Samuels put a lot of men, especially black men, men in a position of having a lot lower tolerance for black women, because stepdaddies was a thing for a long time, but when he came to the standards of what a high value man is and things like that. Now I know that you have been compared to Kevin Samuels before, and because of the type of content that you have and how radical you are when it comes to your integrity and values towards the traditional woman, how do you feel about the comparison, people comparing you to Kevin Samuels?
Yeah, first I want to hit on very briefly what you said about the stepfather thing, and that's something that I've always told the men. I said, black men have got to wake up too, right?
Yeah.
We got to realize that being stepfathers and stepping in and trying to be with women that got 3, 4, 5 kids or even 2 kids by different men and things of this nature, it hasn't worked for us. It hasn't worked since the 60s, right? We don't get the credit for it. Typically, those women don't become our wives. They don't show us their appreciation. They don't build, right? You don't see a man that was a stepfather and then he built a successful legacy of stepchildren, right? You don't see that.
Right.
So, the men have to wake up and realize that the dynamics of, and that should put some more importance on their seed. Wherever they stick their private, right? You need to understand that this is your future.
Right.
This is the legacy that you're going to hold, and realize you shouldn't want to just put it anywhere.
For sure.
No, I think that's very important, the stepdaddy thing. As far as the Kevin comparisons, before I started going online, I remember I would have friends and some family that would send me Kevin Samuels clips, and I think I had heard of him before in the Black manosphere, and I had listened to maybe him one time speak, and the way he spoke was different than how he ended up being, right? Because he kind of evolved. Everybody that probably knew him from early on when he was just more into like men's fashion and trying to level men up with fashion,
cologne and stuff,
things. I think that's where he started. I think they would agree that his kind of message changed in what he was doing.
Yeah, he definitely pivoted.
Yeah, pivoted and evolved, and we all do. So I would say, as far as the comparisons go, I'm totally fine with them. I've come to get used to being called, and I've just embraced it, right? I have nothing but all the respect in the world for Kevin and what he was able to accomplish in a very short period of time. He crushed everything that men talk about behind the scenes, and a lot of the things we feel, he kind of crushed it by putting it out and getting it to the masses, right? You had men doing it and talking this way on a smaller scale, but he did it in front of masses, right? And he's very well known. The fact that he passed away kind of just abruptly, I think, only added to his legacy. So I think he did a very great job at that. But as more people come into contact with me and find out who I am, they'll clearly see the differences, and that there's no desire for me to try to take anything Kevin had or his style or whatever, because I've always been this way. It's interesting that I actually had a good friend that knew me since my church days as a kid, and he called me up one day and he said, brother, I wanted to commend you for everything you've been doing, tell you I love you. And he said, I wish people could see how you've been all your life. He said, because I've known you, and he said, you were before Kevin, you were this way, right?
Absolutely.
This is not me faking anything or trying to take anybody's style. It's just my natural personality. Like I said, I think Kevin was one that inspired me to say I could be myself, which me and Kevin may have a similar background. I think he was raised in church too.
Yeah, he was.
Probably saw a lot of stuff I saw. So I could come on the internet or be in person, be myself, and I don't have to fear, well, I'm going to get canceled because nobody's going to agree with me.
Right.
I'm going to be so different than what the typical black community is, because that's who I've always been, man. Right? So different. So I don't fear that anymore. And I think Kevin kind of gave me the blueprint to know, hey, brother, you can be yourself. You can speak the way you want to speak, and you can wear your clothes, and you don't have to worry about nobody wanting to cancel you or get rid of you, and being successful at that, because they weren't successful at canceling Kevin.
Yeah, and Kevin was a pioneer, bro. Like, he was like one of the first black superheroes for black men. He was a spokesperson for us. He was a person that actually gave our side to the story, and it did it in an articulate way. You know what I mean? And because he was so old, he's like he was like a unicorn in a way where you couldn't, he has certain wisdom. You can't debunk his wisdom because he's old, and then you can't debunk his stats. You can't say that he's dirty looking or like a hoodlum looking. Like, he was very well polished, very well spoken, and he was was like the complete opposite of what a person usually attack when it comes to, black men. You a hood guy, you don't know how to articulate yourself, you speak that slang, and he was a unicorn, and he gave a lot of black men confidence to say, I'm not comfortable with being a stepdad, and I don't want to be canceled because a real man gonna do it, and a real man gonna do it. And we was like stuck behind this wall of what a real man is that was completely defined and perceived by black women. Like, black women created the narrative of what a real man was, and we just followed the trend. And Kevin Samuel said, no, that's not what a real man do. A real man is going to do this and actually have integrity on not being able to share her seed with multiple women with kids or be a stepfather, like especially a man of value. Like, a man of value have choices. A man of value do not have to, go like, and a man of value is a real man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like, yeah, man, I feel like Kevin Samuel was very well needed. I feel like he was the radicalism that we needed in the black community for us to wake up. I think that we was going towards a dark path, and we still going to a dark path. All right, so
you know what I would compare him to, though? I would say Kevin was very much so like a Christian pastor, with the old school values and mentality, and not afraid to sit somebody down in the church, or woman or man. He didn't care, right?
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I felt like he was kind of the modern version of that, right? If you took the old school pastor's mindset and modernized them with fashion and things of this nature, I think that's what you had in Kevin.
Man, and man, Kevin was definitely a unicorn, man. Man, shout out to Kevin and his platform and his family, because he was definitely something that was needed. All right, so before we wrap it up, I want to ask you one more question. Like, where do you think that we can, as a black community, get back to the place that we once were prior to the 60s?
I hate to say it. It's very hard for me to say it. No. I don't think the black community will ever be what it was before. I think it's totally destroyed. I think there will be some here and there that wake up and understand that this is not it. This is not the life. And I want to do better for my family and myself. I think there will be some, not many. But unfortunately, I think that it's a wrap. The community will never be what we saw pre-1960.
Oh wow. Man. And man, I'm in a gray spot with that question. I'm a man of faith, so I have a faith that it could happen, but it's a long shot. It really and truly is, man. Like, it's a lot of work that needs to be done. But I honestly think that,
and I'll expand on that a little bit too, if you want me to. The major factor of why I say that is women control the direction of our children, our families.
Yeah, they do.
It's not the men,
Yeah.
right? And that's why it's so important to get with a very strong woman in her family and culture, religion, things of this nature, not strong in her body or how she looks, right? Or her sex appeal. What happens is the child, you think about it, who are children around most of the time at school? Women. Who's children around most of the time at home? The women. They're not around. In the black community, that's magnified times 50.
Yeah.
They're not around very many men, and then the men that they are around, they're not men. A lot of them are not men of high integrity.
Right.
So you're talking about a deep generational problem. That how do you fix that? How do you get out of that? I mean, you're like in a deep dark pit that's bottomless almost. That there's no light down there. There's no ladder. There's no way up. Right? And how do you get out of it? So it's just, to me, that's why I see it as impossible.
Yeah.
I wish and I hope, I'm a man of faith just like yourself, and I wish and hope it wasn't like that.
Right.
But from everything I've seen throughout all the years, I come from a time of growing up and seeing women that I believe, I had no way of thinking it would be anything like this. I thought that when I grew up, I would marry someone that was like a Denise Huxtable, that was like,
for sure.
Even Myra from Family Matters. So culture is going to be controlled by our women. And if you have a group of women that don't really appreciate their men, don't really like men, don't really care that much about family and marriage and establishing long-term wealth within the family structure, because that's how wealth is built. Wealth is built through marriage.
Yeah.
And wealth is built through death, right? I mean, a lot of them don't understand that. When you pass along, you pass on an estate.
Yeah.
And that estate is an accumulation of wealth. You can't do that when you have, 4 or 5 different baby daddies, right? Or unknown men that you you've had children with.
Yeah.
And when I brought up earlier the numbers about net wealth amongst our women, even with no children, $1,600.
Yeah.
What wealth is being passed on with $1,600 just with the women with no children? The women with children have no wealth.
Yeah.
So there's no wealth in being a single mother. There's no wealth in the women being single. So once they understand that, and if they were able to understand that, then I think that we could see a lot of change. But there's no understanding that they're going to have. Most of them, and I'm not saying all, but most of them are not going to say, hey, you know what? The light bulb just turned on. I need to build wealth. I need to have family structure. I need to have order. I need to have tradition. Let me go ahead and make all these changes.
Yeah, so my response to that, like the only thing that I could think of that can, do a radical shift is something that's trending, because everyone is on the internet. Everyone like to be inclusive when it comes to trends, and especially if they can resonate with it. I feel like a lot of the modern day women are resonating with the trends of being the modern day women. If you look back to when the fathers was deadbeats, they'll leave their kids and they'll never talk to them for years, and that was like a running joke in the black community, but it was actually happening, where dads just won't talk to them. Like, your daddy left and went to get some milk and never came back. And the trends of being a deadbeat father or a good father really transformed like this new generation of fathers. Like, we have been some of the best fathers to our kids than we have been in probably the last 50 to 60 years because of the trend of being a good father. So I feel like if the trend of being a traditional woman and showing like the values of actually being a traditional woman and what you gain from doing it opposed to what you gain by being a modern day woman, I feel like if we get a trend going, like a massive trend, like something super profound, which is still, a long shot for happening. But I feel like we have to continue to push content out like this, where it's women resonated with it and women creating content, showing the success stories of being a modern day woman.
That's a great take and a great point. The only problem with that I see is that something that hasn't worked since the 60s.
Right.
And what happened in the 60s? Our women got a taste of what it was like to get money, their own money.
Yeah.
Without having a man bring home a check, having to rely on a man for whatever. And once they got a taste of their own money, there was no stopping them, right? And you look at just the buying power and the things that are bought up in this world, how much women buy and consume compared to men. When you go to any modern store, you're going to see the layout, immediate layout is laid out to women.
Yeah.
And most of the store is really for women.
Yeah.
Because they know women are consumers, huge consumers.
Yeah.
They're going to buy in a shop. That's what they do with their money. This is why I can't see that, right? You selling your body and making money online or making money in person, selling your body is too big.
Yeah.
For the men being a part of scamming and the drug game or whatever, doing these type of things, there's too much money involved for them to give that up. Even if there was a trend of being more traditional, I think it would be a very small segment. I don't think it would be the majority of the culture anymore. I think the money has too much control over our culture and especially our women.
Damn, that's interesting, and like I couldn't do nothing more but agree with you, because it is a lot of money that's influenced by the black family structure, man, being taken down. It's money in the prison, it's money in the defamation of our music towards each other, it's money in funerals, it's money in
there's girls now, there's teenage girls now that see a girl in her 20s, early 20s even, post online about how much money she made with her cam girl type of account, if you know what I'm talking about, right? Selling her body on camera. And some of them have made, not a whole lot, but some of them have made some millions.
Yeah.
And they see that, and it's just so gratifying to them. It's just something they just want to try. They got to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because there's like, wow, I can make this much money. I have a similar body as her.
Yeah.
Like, she don't have that much better body than me. I can make this money just like she did. That is a greater influence and has a greater hold on our culture and our community than a woman who has traditional values, who's going to show you how to get a good husband, how to maintain a home, how to be a traditional wife, right?
Yeah.
That's not going to have the same effect at all. So that's why I think it's impossible.
Oh man. And well, ladies and gentlemen, that is the episode, guys. I think that this episode has been so profound on not just the black culture and the family structure, but the family structure in America, because a lot of these issues that we've talked about is not just plaguing the black community. It is amplified there, but white, like you said, it's old white people looking for traditional women in Guatemala and Philippines, and they're going over abroad to find traditional women as well, because the modern day Americanized woman, man. But Black Guru, shout out your platform. Tell the people where they can find you.
You can just find all the information for all of my social sites on my website, blackguru.com.
For sure. Well, Black Guru, I appreciate you coming to the channel, man. And this has been a great episode, guys. Until next time, take care of yourself. Take care of your credit. Credit Coach.